He was the first general on either side to die in the American Civil War. He was killed while personally leading the rear guard of his retreating army in the mountains of Western Virginia. And he designed the Great Seal of the state of California. This is the story of General Robert S. Garnett, the Confederate general mortally wounded at the Battle of Corrick's Ford. Robert Selden Garnett was born on December 16, 1819 in Essex County, Virginia. He was part of the West Point class of 1841, along with his cousin and fellow future Confederate General Richard B. Garnett. He finished 27th in a class of 52. 7 members of this class would die in the Civil War. Upon his graduation from West Point, Garnett was assigned as a second lieutenant in the 4th U.S. Artillery. He spent a year on the northern frontier during the Canada border disturbances, serving in Buffalo and Fort Ontario in New York before being assigned garrison duty at Fort Monroe in his native Virginia. In 1843, Garnett became an assistant tactics instructor at West Point before becoming an Army recruiter. Garnett served in the Mexican-American War under Zachary Taylor and received 2 brevets for distinguished service, one at the Battle of Monterey and the other for gallant and meritorious conduct in the Battle of Buena Vista. In 1848, Garnett transferred to the 7th U.S. Infantry and served in the Seminole Wars in Florida before heading to the Presidio of Monterey, California. He also had an unusual peacetime achievement. He designed the Great Seal of the state of California. At that time, there was conflict between military and civilian authorities, so he gave his blessing and design to Caleb Lyon, clerk of the convention. Except for some minor changes in subsequent years, today's Great Seal is virtually the same as Garnett's design. After a brief stint on a review board in Washington, D.C., he served on the frontier in Texas, being promoted to captain. He returned to West Point as Commandant of Cadets and Instructor of Infantry Tactics. He held that role until November 1854, when then Secretary of War Jefferson Davis dismissed him. He was later transferred to garrison duty in Virginia. Being named a captain in the 1st U.S. Cavalry, he once again served on the frontier. The much-traveled Garnett was promoted to Major of the 9th U.S. Infantry and went west to the Washington Territory, where he served in the 1856 Yakima Expedition and the 1858 fighting against the Puget Sound Indians. He designed and supervised the construction of Fort Simcoe. He requested and was granted an extended leave of absence later that year, when his wife and young son died from disease, and he returned east to bury their remains. Still in mourning, he was traveling in Europe when the Confederate States of America were formed. When Virginia seceded from the United States, Garnett resigned his commission in April 1861 and became Adjutant General of the Virginia troops, serving under Robert E. Lee. Lee recommended him for promotion, and he was appointed Brigadier General on June 6, 1861, and sent to command the Department of Northwestern Virginia, tasked with protecting vital rail lines and mountain passes in the region. His assignment seemed doomed from the start. Before departing Richmond, Garnett expressed morbid dread, saying, "They have not given me an adequate force. I can do nothing. They have sent me to my death." His fears proved prophetic. At the start of the Civil War, Union forces had rapidly crossed the Ohio River to seize a portion of northwestern Virginia, winning a key victory at the Battle of Philippi. On June 15th, Lee assigned Garnett to reorganize the Confederate forces in the area. He deployed his forces at strategic points along the Staunton-Parkersburg Turnpike, hoping to defend the vital supply route against Federal troops. A series of small battles occurred, with the Confederates being forced to withdraw under pressure from Major General George B. McClellan's Union forces. After a defeat at Battle of Rich Mountain, Garnett withdrew from his Laurel Hill entrenchments under cover of darkness, hoping to escape to northern Virginia with his 4,500 men. However, he received what later proved to be false information that his escape route to Beverly was blocked by Union troops. He instead marched to the northeast, following ridges and valleys in a more circuitous route. Pursued for several days by as many as 20,000 Federals, Garnett paused at several stream crossings to slow his adversaries. While directing his rear guard in a delaying action at Corrick's Ford, Garnett was shot and killed during a Union volley. A friend in the Union Army recovered his body after Garnett's remaining men had fled. A participant in the battle related his coming upon the body of General Garnett as he was dying and expressed the belief that he had been killed mistakenly by his own men. In recognition of Garnett's service during the Mexican-American War, a federal honor guard conveyed his body under a flag of truce to his relatives, who buried Garnett in Baltimore, Maryland. He was later reinterred next to his wife in Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York, one of 2 Confederate generals buried there. His grave monument, which he had erected for his wife and child, does not have his name on it. One face mentions his wife, one face his son, and one face has the words "to my wife and child." The 4th face is blank. In his Memoirs of the War, E. Porter Alexander expressed great admiration for Garnett and stated his belief that if he had lived, Garnett would have become one of the great Confederate generals of the war. Garnett had been commandant of the Corps of Cadets in Alexander's first year and saw his leadership firsthand. Garnett also had a higher rank in the U.S. Army than most future Confederate generals. Some of them would rise to as high as corps commanders. He was already a major, while most Union officers who became Confederate generals were captains or lower. For example, John Bell Hood was a first lieutenant, while A.P. Hill was a captain. Despite his early death and unfulfilled potential, Garnett has not been forgotten. Various groups have honored Garnett. However, existing markers are usually historical battle plaques rather than glorifying monuments, and his grave in New York makes no mention of his Confederate service. For example, a boulder and a bronze plaque commemorates the Battle of Corrick's Ford, but no monument to Garnett stands there. In California, the General Robert S. Garnett Chapter 2570 of the United Daughters of the Confederacy was named in his memory and honor. In 1957, the group also had a plaque to honor Garnett for designing the California State Seal during his brief service at the Presidio in Monterey in 1849. In 2017, after the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, the city of Monterey installed a new plaque omitting mention of Garnett's Confederate history. However, it was stolen in 2020 and was never replaced. There's a Sons of Confederate Veterans camp in West Virginia named Robert Garnett Camp 1470 in his honor. Thank you for watching. Do you think Garnett could have been one of the South's greatest generals had he survived long enough? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you.